Hello and welcome. My name is Tamala Olsby, and I am an education specialist within the Early Childhood Education Division here at the Texas Education Agency. And I'm so glad that you've decided to join us. This webinar will review the high-quality pre-kindergarten component of data reporting. And it is an abbreviated version of the existing webinar on the same subject that is available on TEA's website. There is a copy of the slide deck available within the control panel. So let's look at today's agenda. We will begin by focusing on an overview of the high-quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3. And then we will focus on data reporting specifically. We'll answer the question, what data is required to be uploaded? What does it mean? And we'll talk briefly about some new required data elements. And lastly, we will talk about the Early Childhood Data System, or ECDS. And then we will end our time together going over some resources and support. So let's look at the overview. This slide lists the high-quality pre-kindergarten components that are referenced in HB3, and they are a requirement of every public pre-kindergarten program within Texas that is serving eligible 4-year-old students. The focus of this particular webinar is on data reporting. All the information contained within this presentation comes from at least one of the sources listed on this slide. Please note that the high-quality pre-kindergarten components are applicable to all programs, districts, open enrollment charters, districts of innovation, that are serving eligible 4-year-old students using foundation school program funding. So here we go. What are the requirements that focus on data reporting? This slide shows you exactly what data is required to be uploaded into either PEIMS or the ECDS system. Demographic data, whether the child is enrolled in half day or full day, the sources of funding, the class size or ratio, the type of curriculum, the student progress monitoring tool and results, the kindergarten readiness data, teacher qualifications, program evaluation, and last but not least, the family engagement plan. That is a lot of data. So what does all of this mean? Well, specifically, LEAs must upload the data that is specified in statute or commissioner's rule into the Early Childhood Data System. Information regarding the submission of that required data is usually communicated through a TAA, or a to the administrator addressed correspondence. It usually occurs in the fall of each year, and I have a link to the current one. There are some new data elements that will be reported this year, and TEA will provide further guidance on these new data elements, but we want to prepare you slightly, at least, for some additional items so that you can be ready. So the first one is the instructional program type code for pre-Ks. LEAs through this will document what type of pre-kindergarten program the student went to, and basically it's just an update. A non-public pre-K will be added to the already existing list. There will also be added a full day waiver indicated code, and this will indicate whether the district and charter has received an exemption from offering full day pre-K. The next one is a pre-kindergarten school type code. As you know, Senate Bill 1679 allows a 3-year-old student that was enrolled in public pre-K to automatically be eligible for enrollment as a 4-year-old student, whether or not they meet the current eligibility requirements for pre-K. And LEAs will now report which students fall into that new scenario. And lastly, LEAs will report on the sources of funding that they are using for their pre-kindergarten program. Some examples of that would be this local funding, state funding, federal funding, the early ed allotment, and districts will mark off which funding sources they are using. Once LEAs all across our state upload their data into the early childhood system, it is used internally by TEA and is made available to the public through several reports. And we want to briefly look at those reports. There are 3 of them here on the slide with a link. And these are all available to the public on TEA's website. Please note that each of these T-peer reports, as we call them, can be accessed with state data, district charter data, campus data, or by a data download. Let's now look at some resources and support that may assist you in complying with this high quality component. This slide contains many links to items that we've discussed in this webinar. For instance, this first one, the TAA, we talked about that earlier. Remember, it is sent in the fall of each year, and it gives LEAs guidance concerning the data that must be submitted. The next link is to Section 10 of TSDS Core Collections. This chapter, Section 10, out of the Student Attendance Accounting Handbook, is very specific to pre-kindergarten. This next link will list by ESC the trained personnel who are ready and able to assist LEAs in reporting their data, and they are called champions. This next link has useful information regarding data that is specific to pre-kindergarten. And lastly, I've given you the link to the T-peer reports that we reviewed earlier in the presentation. As always, the Early Childhood Education Division of TEA is ready and willing to support your efforts. So please visit our website and do not hesitate to contact us if needed. If you have specific technical questions regarding how to upload the data into ECDS, please use this email address, ecds@tea.texas.gov. I'd like to leave you today with a quote. It says, "Data will talk to you if you're willing to listen." Using data to inform our continuous improvement efforts is a great way to build the quality of our Texas pre-kindergarten programs. Please be reminded that there is a longer version of this webinar that goes into much more detail that is available on TEA's website. Thank you so much for joining us today.